What's up, homies and homiettes? It's your boy Home Boom back with another segment of the Hold Up Show. And hold up, oops, you're sorry? Today we're going to be reviewing a bunch of clips. One of a report of Pfizer apologizing for illegally promoting a unlicensed jab with no safety data, as well as what the Great Reset is being marketed as and what it possibly means or what it possibly meant for us with this particular pandemic rollout and all the things that we experienced with that. So let's get into it. Hold up.
Says sorry. I wonder if they were sorry when they were making $1,000 a minute peddling all this crap. I wonder if they're also sorry for trying to censor people who were trying to speak against it. Or if they're sorry for people almost losing their jobs or losing their jobs if they decided not to get it. Let's also not forget how they tried to hide their list of side effects for 75 years.
So yeah, how could we forget what they tried to do, right? You could not go nowhere. You were restricted. People were losing their jobs. Small businesses were closing because they could not keep up and be profitable with all the COVID restrictions, among other things, right? The mask wearing that made absolutely no sense. We seen people wearing socks on their face, rags, cut off shirts, whatever, right? Made no sense, right? We seen basketball hoops be taken down. We seen all of our movements restricted, and then be told that we would be allowed to move again a little bit if we had a jab card or something to show our current status and all that, right? Only to find out that the particular companies that were promoting, pushing, and providing these treatments now are doubling back saying, oh, we're sorry, we don't have any data to show you. We were under immense pressure to get this produced and to stop people from dying and all this other stuff. So we cut through all the red tape and then to turn around and say, hey, we were developing these doses well into 2 years before there were any pandemics, specifically for what the people needed the jab for, right? So I want to go into this other clip from an ex-investment banker named Catherine Austin Fitz, right? And she breaks down what possibly the Great Reset was being promoted as, what it actually meant behind all the word salad. So let's get into it.
When the central bankers of the G7 nations went into the room in Jackson Hole in August 2019 and they voted on the Going Direct Reset, everything that's happening to us right now is part of the Going Direct Reset, and they voted on it. It was a plan. Okay, so they wrote a plan. They decided to do this. So they've been engaged in the financial coup for 20 years. We're now coming into the end game. They have to consolidate the financial coup, and they vote on the Going Direct Reset. And with that one decision, they made a decision over the next year to put 500 million people out of work. That's the equivalent of dropping several nuclear bombs around the world. That's financial warfare. And they made it intentionally, they made it knowingly, and it was a plan. And what is very important to understand when you think about this pandemic is people are not dying from magic viruses. People are dying from tyranny. They're dying from a great poisoning that's part of that tyranny. But our problem and the thing we need to be afraid of is tyranny, because the tyranny is about to get much, much worse. And it's the passports and that system of central bank digital control that will give them the ability to do that. The World Economic Forum calls it the Great Reset, which is kind of the marketing, it's the if I were to get everybody in a room and talk about the going direct reset, everybody would go to sleep because it's all financial. Okay, but the World Economic Forum guys make it, interesting and fashionable, and, it's 2030, you own nothing, and you're happy. Now, what I hear is it's 2030, the going direct reset has stolen all your money, taken all your assets, and they've got your mind controlled. Do you know what I mean? So it depends on how you look at it. But the reset is to sell to people a vision of a world where the average person has a much smaller command on resources and assets and is subject to complete central control.
Yeah, so there you have ex-investment banker Catherine Fitz explaining what the Great Reset is intended to do, how they're marketing it, how they're trying to promote it to the people, right? And they used it they plan to unroll it and start to implement it through this pandemic, right? Like that was supposed to be the guise under which the Great Reset started its initiatives, right? So then I want to get into this clip from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as he explains Event 201 and how that simulation came about, right? So let's get into it.
How many of you have heard of Event 201? Event 201 is a simulation that they did right before COVID hit, and it was a drill for how to handle pandemics. But it didn't do the things you would think they would do, like how do we fix the VAERS system to make sure that we get good data? What they talked about was how to turn America into a totalitarian state. How to impose censorship. In my book on Fauci, I've been able to find 22 of those simulations. And they have been practicing this for year and year. It's all sponsored by the CIA, as I demonstrate. Fauci and Bill Gates play key roles.
As you can say, he said they've been through this simulation several times, trying to find the perfect time to implement it. And people like Fauci and Bill Gates play key roles, right? Let's look at who Fauci and Bill Gates are, right? Fauci, man placed to help find cures, did not do any of that since 77 that he's been in charge of the National Institution of Health. We've seen the arrival of AIDS. We've seen autism come out of nowhere in record numbers. We've seen a bunch of respiratory illnesses come back with a vengeance. He was supposed to be in charge of getting rid of whatever already existed, not creating new things. Or was he in charge of creating new things? That's why he needed gain of function funding and all that, and he probably had a blank check from Congress or the federal government to do all these nefarious experiments and come up with these quote unquote alleged viruses and alleged antidotes to them, right? So then you got a guy like Bill Gates with a shady elitist background who was introduced to us through computer antivirus software, which they say in turn turned around and infected all the computers that weren't his. And then he makes billions of dollars doing this, right? Or he makes millions of dollars doing it. And then the next thing you know, he wants to enter the treatment space, right? The treatment arena. And he wants to go to our homeland of Africa and, experiment and get data and give it away for free and see whatever happens to those innocent, unaware people, right? And now we see him try to maneuver his way to agriculture. Now he wants to mess with the I believe he bought the people who are in charge of apple cider vinegar, or he did something to the apples to make them buy only his genetically modified apples. So now that important thing that has been around for centuries that people use for all types of healing properties and other uses is now a GMO product in itself, because it's made from the source of its power is now a GMO apple. Now he wants to invade the salt industry because a lot of people are finding out about mineral salt, and so let's continue with, because these people, why would you want a computer guy in charge of any type of medical treatment, or in charge of developing, designing, and creating anything to go inside our body? He should only be working on electronics. That's what he's known for. Now you want to mess with our food and you want to sell us non-nutritionist, fake, modified stuff, So, yeah, let's just continue.
Bill Gates called Fauci in 2000 to his home in Seattle. $147 million home, 40 acres on Lake Washington. He sat Fauci down in his library and he said, I want to propose to you a partnership. That you and I work together to vaccinate the world. The story in my book tells exactly how they went through that. And the story of these simulations is critically important because it was the way that they prepared. They didn't just have a few people involved. They had hundreds of thousands. Cops these were all top secret. Police officers in every community in this country, healthcare workers, first responders, were all drilled in this. How to censor, how to silence, how to impose tracking and tracing, how to do control. So they all went through these drills again and again, and it was a way of drilling and practicing a coup d'etat against American democracy. All of the techniques they use, I've spent a lot of time studying the CIA because my family was in a 60-year fight with them, and I wrote a book about that battle called American Values. But I've read all of their manuals, and they have techniques for going into indigenous countries and causing chaos, shattering the societies, destroying the economy, creating social distance between people so that there's no unit cohesion. And then when everybody is demoralized and destroyed, coming in with a centralized control and imposing, as they did with all of us, they locked down America in a hostage taking. And they impose something that is part of their technique, which is called Stockholm Syndrome, where the captive becomes grateful to their captor and identifies with them and understands, comes to this belief that the only way that they can save their lives is through absolute obsequious obedience to their captors. And all of these drills were intended to impose and to induce that condition in the entire public. And I'll tell you one other thing. The CIA did a series of mind control experiments back in the 60s and 70s called MK Ultra. and Project Artichoke. And one of the famous experiments was called the Milgram experiment. And the Milgram experiment, and you guys look it up, Milgram experiment. What they did is they brought volunteers from every walk of life, college professors, construction workers, everybody. They put them in a room with a doctor in a lab coat, a figure of authority. And he would tell them, turn up the electricity and shock the person who's in the next room. That person was an actor. And they would tell him, turn it up higher, turn it up higher. It went into the death zone. 67% of the people put it into the death zone, even though many of them weren't crying at the time. They were begging the doctor not to make them do it. And what they found was that using authority, particularly doctors in white lab coats, 67% of the public will violate their own conscience and do what they're told. All of this was orchestrated. They put doctors in charge of America, speaking of authority, never showing us any science, but ordering us what to do. And as you read my book, you're going to see all of the direct CIA involvement, and I name the person, I name the officers, year after year that were directly involved, partnered with Bill Gates, partnered with Tony Fauci, creating these scenarios in anticipation.
So there you have it. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. explaining how they ran these simulations prior to the pandemic of this thing called Event 201 on how they were going to implement and put in their lockdowns and start to implement their great reset using these figures of authority like a Fauci, like a Bill Gates, like others, if you remember during that time, who was jumping on TV, offering you free fries and burgers and donuts if you showed your compliance and you showed your, just your willingness to follow, right? And now he's telling you that they had experiments that showed people would go against their own good feeling, their own morals, because of a person of authority is directing them to do something that they believe that they have to do. This is all social engineering, right? And he mentioned a particular 3-letter agency a few times because they are the ones that were in charge of the social engineering to make society weaker, to accept things like a jab for no good reason or without common sense data and just knowledge on why, you know what I'm saying? And then they try to take away your ability to choose, your free will to make the decision on your own whether you wanted to comply or you seen that as being the best direction to go in to solve this issue they created, right? So it's just very crazy, some of the scenarios that we were put in and we were able to navigate and make our way out of. Not all of us came out uninjured or unaffected, whether physically or psychologically from the events that took place, but it's crazy. Like, we're owed an apology, we're owed compensation, we're owed relief for all of this. no oops, sorry is going to do in this case. So I want to know your thoughts. Like, comment, subscribe, share, get involved. What are your thoughts on all of this? Did you see what I seen as far as them trying to make this a totalitarian country where you are basically under full control and restrictions and all your movements must be under permission, right? So it's your boy Home Boom. This is another segment of the Hold Up Show. And hold up. We not going through this again. Peace.